All right, so you know how much we love digging into Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, right?
Timeless stuff.
Totally. And we had a listener write in about Law 9, win through your actions, never through argument. They said it was a game changer.
Powerful one, that's for sure.
But they also mentioned it felt kind of, I don't know, intense.
Yeah, I can see that. 48 laws of power. It's easy to jump to, like, cutthroat tactics, right?
For sure. But what Greene's really getting at is how power dynamics actually play out, not just being ruthless.
Exactly. It's about strategy, understanding the psychology behind influence, not being a jerk.
Right. And this Law 9, it really highlights that. It's about strategic action over just empty words.
Totally. I mean, think about it. How often do you win an argument, truly win someone over with logic alone?
Ugh, all the time, right?
Yeah.
Just kidding. It feels like that never works. Like, ever. You get stuck in this back and forth. No one's budging.
And that's the point, isn't it? It triggers defensiveness. Green talks about how people get backed into a corner, their egos get involved, logic goes out the window.
Oh, totally. It's like their brains just switch off, and it becomes about winning the argument, not actually hearing what you're saying. So what's the alternative? How do we bypass that?
That's where action comes in. It speaks a different language. Actions are harder to argue with. They're harder to misinterpret. Remember, don't tell them, show them.
Okay, I like that. Show, don't tell. So instead of trying to convince someone with words, you let your actions prove your point.
Exactly. Think about the confidence that projects too. You don't need to convince anyone because your actions are speaking for themselves. There's a quiet mastery in that.
Okay, I'm seeing it. But what about when there's real disagreement? Like someone just flat out opposes your idea. You can't just like snap your fingers and make the problem disappear.
You're right, but think about it. How do you shut down criticism most effectively?
Avoid all human contact. Become a hermit. Asking for a friend.
Chuckles, right? No, seriously, think about it. What silences critics more than anything else?
Hmm. I mean, I guess proving them wrong.
Exactly. Results, tangible outcomes. That's what Napoleon did. He didn't win battles by debating military strategy. He took action.
Imagine Napoleon sitting around, drawing up battle plans and then just endlessly debating them.
He'd have been laughed out of France, right?
Yeah.
Action was his power move.
So it's not just about action over words, it's knowing when to act, right? Like that strategic silence can be powerful too.
100%. It's about choosing your moment for maximum impact. Green gives the example of a well-timed business deal. It can neutralize a rival more effectively than any argument.
Right, like you completely outmaneuver them. They're left speechless because you've already won. Can you give another example? Like something maybe a little more relatable?
Okay, let's say you're in a tense negotiation. You can sense hesitation from the other side, right? Instead of jumping in to justify your position, you pause. You stay silent. That can actually throw them off balance.
Oh, interesting. So it's like because they're expecting you to argue, that silence becomes even more powerful.
Yes, they might even reveal their reservations, giving you the upper hand.
Wow, so much of this is about controlling the narrative. And it's like by arguing, we almost make ourselves vulnerable, right? Like you're putting your cards on the table, your weaknesses, everything out in the open.
Exactly. A well-timed action, though, it can completely shift that dynamic. It keeps people guessing, keeps you in control.
Whereas getting caught up in arguments, it's emotionally draining. You lose focus and it can be harder to think clearly.
That's why emotional control is so key to really owning this law.
This has been so insightful. So for our listeners out there, take a moment and think. Where in your life have you argued when you could have acted?
Yes. And what would it look like to choose a different path? Pay attention to those moments when you feel yourself being pulled into a debate. That's your chance.
Because this isn't about never speaking up right. It's about being strategic, aligning your actions with your goals to make a real impact. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to let your actions speak for themselves.